What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show. And we have the upcoming Cincinnati Bengals versus the Washington Redskins game, preseason game coming up. And today I have a special guest on the show, my man who's the host of the New Stripe City podcast, my man Ace Boog. How's everything going, Ace?
Hey, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me on. As you heard, it's your boy Ace Boogie. I represent the New Stripe City YouTube channel, and I'm glad to be able to link up with you and discuss some Bengals and Redskins stuff.
Man, I appreciate you coming on. So let me get right into the questions and stuff with you, man. Starting out, man, you know, the Marvin Lewis era is basically come to an end. And y'all went on and y'all hired Zach Taylor as y'all head coach. Give me an idea of the energy surrounding the Cincinnati Bengals in regards to the hiring of Zach Taylor.
Well, from a national media standpoint, you would think that it wouldn't be that much, but when you talk about the local fan base, it's really a vote of energy because this is our first brand new coach since 2002. So you're talking about 17 years basically of the Marvin Lewis era and being in a position that we have never been in before, which was having a new coach, you know, bringing in his new system. Also, it being an offensive coach, that's something that I think put a bolt of lightning into our fan base. We really were just sick and tired of Marvin Lewis. We appreciate what he did, bringing Cincinnati from, you know, a bottom seller team to a competitor, but it just kind of got very bland and old, and people were just ready for a change. So right now, there's actually a lot of energy going on right now in the fan base, and people are excited to see what changes that Zach Taylor may bring to this team. So there's a lot of excitement actually right now, believe it or not, in Cincinnati.
Man, I mean, that sounds good coming from y'all as a person. You know, we had Marvin Lewis in D.C. before, so I can understand that how, you know, the long tenure of a coach can kind of drive you crazy, especially with us and Jay Gruden. But even talking about that, next year is the 2020 draft, and from all reports, there's going to be a wealth of quarterbacks that's going to be in this draft. Is this the make or break year for Andy Dalton?
This is definitely a make or break year for Andy Dalton. He's heading into the last year of his contract. And although he's been a decent quarterback, he hasn't been a guy who's been able to raise the level of the talent around him. When he's missed key guys, a lot of the play has fallen off. He's been pretty solid the last couple of years, but we need him to show that he's ready to take that next step before we can really commit to him. Now, personally, what I've seen, it seems like Zach Taylor definitely is committed to Andy Dalton, at least for this year. He was handpicked by our quote-unquote GM, really our president of player operations, Duke Tobin, brought Zach Taylor in. So he sold him on Andy Dalton. I think that if Andy Dalton, a good season similar to what he had in 2015, I think that it's a no-brainer that they'll bring him back. But if they have a horrible season, and let's say Andy Dalton goes down this year early and we just end up at, you know, winning 4 or 5 games, then I think that they would take a look at a quarterback. But right now, I would probably say that there's a 70% chance that they'll probably stick with Andy Dalton as of this moment, unless the season is just a complete disaster. This front office has always been behind Andy Dalton. Our fan base hasn't been too happy about that, but we're willing to be okay with him if he has a season similar to 2015, in which most people thought was kind of an MVP. Believe it or not, it sounds crazy to say that because it's Andy Dalton, but that was like close to him having an MVP year. So a lot of our fans who have been Dalton fans have seen how good he has been in that year, but they wonder, and we kind of get skeptical from year to year as far as that 2015 season gets, is can he replicate that, right? If he can, then I think that he will be back. If he can, I think that this team will finally do what they did with Marvin Lewis and move in another direction. But the catch-22 with Andy Dalton is that he's enough for you to end up at an 8-8 or a 9-7 or a 7-9. You're never really going to get that top 3 draft pick if he's healthy. So that's the dilemma that we have, right? So depending on how the season goes, whether it's an average season or a below average season, that will dictate the future for Andy Dalton. But for right now, like I said, I think there's about a 70% chance that he returns. I don't think that he'll be asking for Dak Prescott money at all. He likes being at Cincinnati. So I think for right now, although we would love to have one of those top 3 guys, I think right now I'd be lying if I said that the Bengals aren't bidding right now on Andy Dalton.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for any quarterback to really ask for Dak Prescott money, to be honest with you.
Right.
AJ Green went down in camp early with injury and stuff like that. With him going into his 9th season, do you think that the Bengals are going to start transitioning his workload over to Tyler Boyd?
So with AJ Green, this guy is going to end up as the number 1 receiver in Bengals history. He's a future Hall of Famer. I think with his injury, I think that you will see them lean on Tyler Boyd early, but everybody knows who the best player on this team is. It's AJ Green. Like, I love Tyler Boyd, but he is no AJ Green. When it's that 3rd down and you need it, or you need that big play when you're down and you're trailing in the game, they're going to go to AJ Green. And it's a good and a bad thing. One of the bad things I would say is in the past, Andy Dalton has kind of leaned on AJ Green a lot because he's so good. But having that Tyler Boyd and having a guy like John Ross, and with AJ actually being hurt early, it's going to force Andy Dalton to depend on those other guys. But I think when you see Andy Dalton come back, I mean not Andy Dalton, but AJ Green come back, I think you'll start to see them shift back towards AJ Green. Not to say that Tyler Boyd won't get his catches here and there, but that offense, man, it just runs through AJ Green, and when you don't have him, it's noticeable. It's very noticeable when you don't have AJ Green.
Yeah, I can admit, man. I mean, AJ Green has been a beast, and I ain't gonna lie, from afar, I've been watching him, man. He's been the best thing that I've seen other than Julio Jones, but the guy's a beast.
And you talk about it. Sorry to cut you off, but you talk about consistency, and this is a guy that was on track. He actually broke Randy Moss's, or was at least on track to break Randy Moss's record of 1,007, I think 1,000 consecutive seasons, and he only didn't break it because he got hurt. So this is a guy that when he's in there, he kind of flies under the radar a little bit if you don't pay attention to the Bengals. But to me, he's a top 5 receiver in the league, and I think this year he's kind of heard the whispers that he might not even be top 10, and I think that he was ready to go off this season. It just sucks that he got hurt.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, I've been impressed by AJ Green the whole time he's been there. Now, when it comes to y'all defense, y'all moved on from Vontaze Burfict, and it seems like you guys got a lot of bigger linebackers. How do you feel about this unit being able to handle this fast-paced NFL?
To be honest with you, the Bengals are just now getting to the party where they're kind of trying to get linebackers with speed. Vontaze Burfict in the past was our best linebacker, but last year he just really took a step back. And I think the front office honestly got tired of him either being injured or being suspended. And when they reviewed a lot of his film, he was kind of acting kind of renegade. He wasn't listening to the defensive coordinator, so they kind of got rid of him. But to be honest with you, I've been known on my channel to really bash the Bengals about the linebacker position. They drafted Jermaine Pratt, who I think is a solid guy. I'm not sure if he can be the face of the defense. I'm not sure if he'll have a straight impact like that. The linebackers that we currently have, you look at a guy like Nick Vigil, you look at a guy like Jordan Evans, that's them trying to go after the more athletic linebackers. But like you said, majority of the linebackers are those heavier guys, and they just really haven't adjusted, and they're having a hard time adjusting to the new age linebacker that might be, 228 to 230 pounds and run that 4.5 or sub 4.5 kind of 40 time. They just haven't been able to really knock it out of the park there. So they're betting it all really on Jermaine Pratt. But after watching our first preseason game, it easily looks like the worst position group that we have on this team.
Well, my last question to you. Mike Brown is similar to what we got going on here in Washington. We call him Fan Snyder here. But Mike Brown has been extremely involved with the Bengals decisions when it comes to players and coaches and everything. Do you feel his involvement has hindered the Bengals from being able to reach the playoffs or even make the Super Bowl?
That's a great question. I think the one thing that I will say is both Mike Brown and Daniel Snyder are heavily involved. The one thing that I will say with Dan Snyder, even though he's a bad owner as well, he's at least willing to spend money, whereas Mike Brown is more of a bargain hunter guy. He lets the money sometimes dictate whether or not he's going to bring guys on from the outside, whether he's going to keep guys. I will say in recent history, I have to give him his credit. He's relinquished a lot of the control over the team. I probably would say going back about 3 years now, he's kind of let his daughter, he's kind of let like this collective group kind of make the decisions. So there's his daughter, there's her husband, there's our president of player operations, Duke Tobin, and they kind of actually lead the charge now. So the whole Zach Taylor thing, Mike Brown actually wasn't even involved with that. He let that committee of stakeholders kind of, in a sense, make that decision. He's kind of let them handle the contracts and stuff like that. Now, that's not to say that he's not involved, because he still has final say in certain things. So there's things that we feel like players should have, like an actual practice facility, right? You're a professional football team. There are colleges with indoor practice facilities. The Bengals don't have one. It's got to be Mike Brown keeping that from happening. But what I will say is the day-to-day operations, when it comes to decisions and things like that, Mike Brown has kind of started to listen to the fans, and you can tell that just with the Marvin Lewis firing. The biggest reason for that is that the fans have started hitting Mike Brown in the pocket. So when you hit Mike Brown in the pocket, he tends to listen. But to your original question, I would say that he's kind of given up that reign that he used to have. Now, back in the day, that vice grip was tight, and it contributed to a lot of losing years. You talk about the 90s, you talk about the early 2000s. He was a stubborn guy. I mean, to be honest with you, it didn't really start to change until people convinced him to trade Carson Palmer, and that kind of worked out with us getting the 2 first-round draft picks, A.J. Green and Andy Dalton. And once he started listening to guys, things started to change. He actually, believe it or not, and it's hard to say how it would have worked out, but back when the Bengals were drafting, he actually wanted to take Colin Kaepernick at quarterback over Andy Dalton. He actually was convinced by your head coach, Jay Gruden, to actually go with Dalton. So he started to listen to the staff. He started to listen to that committee that's around him. So I will give him his credit and say that he has relinquished some of that, but there's still a vice grip, right? He's not going to go out and say, hey, just for example, somebody that's going to be a free agent, we wouldn't trade for Melvin Gordon because obviously we're good at running back, but he's not going to go after those big name players and trade for them. Like right now, I think a better scenario would be Trent Williams, right? You guys have Trent Williams. He wants to get out of there. You're looking for a trade partner. The Bengals obviously have a huge hole at left tackle that he could use right now. We could use Trent Williams on our offensive line, but he's going to look at that contract and he's going to say, I think we can get by with what we have here, which are our bargain shop free agent tackles that we are barely paying right now. So that's the part where he kind of tends to get in the way. And I think he has held the Bengals back a little bit from the Super Bowl, but I think in his mind he thinks that 2005 when we were pretty high in the Carson era, I think in his mind, and I think in a lot of Bengals fans' minds, to be honest with you, we thought that was a banner year that was cut short because of the Carson Palmer injury. And a lot of fans could say the same for 2015, so it kind of gives him some leeway because Andy Dalton was hurt that year too. So, but I think if you ask any general Bengals fan, they would say, yeah, Mike Brown unfortunately has contributed to them not winning a Super Bowl, because when they had those very stacked teams, he never made that move to acquire somebody or acquire a rare talent in that nature.
Last thing I got for you, man. What is your predictions for the game, or what do you expect what are you expecting out of this game when it comes to the Bengals?
To be honest with you, it's kind of hard to gauge what Zach Taylor is really looking for. I think he's looking to see this team respond. And I think more so the second team, he's looking forward to see how they respond against the Redskins. Lucas should be in a short turnaround. I think he liked what he saw from the offense. You talk about the first team offenses. I'm not sure whether you guys or we are going to actually play them into the whole first half or not. I think that the Bengals right now are a little shell-shocked after losing A.J. Green, after losing Jonah Williams. John Ross being sidelined. I think they're kind of scared to kind of play some of those guys. They actually sat a lot of guys for the first game. So I think what he's going to look to is to see more from the second team offense, which we should have Ryan Finley going in there with the twos. He was with the threes last week. That was a guy that Zach Taylor was really huge on. They traded up in the draft to get him. And I think that he's also going to look at the defense. Our defense looked terrible last week. I mean, it's kind of hard to gauge against Pat Mahomes because, you know, he is the reigning MVP. But, you know, even after Pat Mahomes, you know, Chase Litton lit those dudes up. So I think he will want to see how the defense reacts, and I think he will want to see how the second unit offense reacts.
All right, man. That's my man, A Boogie. He's the host of the New Stripe City podcast. You can catch him on Instagram at New Stripe City, on Twitter under New Stripe City, and on his YouTube channel, New Stripe City Podcast. I appreciate all your help, Ace.
Hey, man, anytime.
All right, that's my man, Ace Boogie. This is your man, John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.